Good evening, everyone. My name is Madison Lisowski.
And my name is London Brazal. Welcome to MCTV's Biweekly News Report.
More than 20 Marist College students traveled to Ireland over spring break as an attachment program to 2 different courses in literature and communications. After visiting Dublin and planning to return to the United States, 5 students tested positive for COVID-19. As required by the United States government, all travelers entering the country, regardless of vaccination status or citizenship, must receive a negative COVID test no more than 1 day before departing by air, per the CDC. The students were forced to quarantine in Ireland for an additional week before they could return to the States. All who tested negative were able to fly back on schedule. Marist Abroad then had to cancel and rebook the infected students' flights. The academic excursion was otherwise a success and will be planned again in the future.
On April 4th, 2022, jury selection began for the panel that will decide the fate of the Parkland shooter. On February 14th, 4 years ago, expelled student Nikolas Cruz opened fire in the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. He murdered 14 students and 3 faculty members and pled guilty to 17 accounts of murder and 17 accounts of attempted murder. Prosecutors want to serve the death penalty on Cruz, who will face life in prison at a minimum. A 12-member jury will provide a recommendation for Cruz's execution, with the proceedings lasting up to 6 months. The prosecutors and defense attorneys will present evidence, and victim impact statements from survivors and victim families will be heard. The jurors would have to make a unanimous decision about aggravating factors, then have a vote about recommending the death penalty. If there is a unanimous decision, then the judge will make the final decision about capital punishment. Now, let's check in with Jimmy for a sports update.
Thanks, London. Hey everyone, Jimmy here once again to give you everything you need to know in sports from the past week. This past Saturday, we saw a historic matchup between the Duke Blue Devils and the Carolina Tar Heels. This was the first ever matchup between these 2 teams in the Final Four of the March Madness tournament, even though these squads have matched up well over 200 times in history. Also, this was Duke's Coach K's last Final Four, as this was his last season coaching before he will retire. What we got was a classic for the ages, as both teams were neck and neck all the way through until Carolina put the game away right at the end. Duke was sent packing with a sour taste in their mouths as they see their storied coach leave the game he has been around for so long. This win pins Carolina against Kansas for the national championship happening tonight. This game will be another great one and will wrap up March Madness for 2022. In the pro side of basketball, the NBA is wrapping up its regular season as teams only have 4 to 5 games left on their schedules. Teams are racing for better seeding as there is little room for error. Who will we see make it to the playoffs, and who will be crowned regular season MVP at the end of this? Only time will tell. Well, that's all the time I have for now. Thank you again for watching, and I will send it over back to you guys.
Thank you, Jimmy. The 2022 Grammys finally had its television time after being delayed from January due to the Omicron variant of COVID-19. On Sunday, April 3rd, Trevor Noah hosted the awards show for the 2nd year in a row, this time in Las Vegas, Nevada. Highlight performances came from BTS, Olivia Rodrigo, Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas, Her featuring Lenny Kravitz, Chris Stapleton, and Jon Batiste. Silk Sonic and Brandi Carlile also performed. This was Olivia Rodrigo's first Grammys, yet she still took home 3 awards, including Best New Artist, Best Pop Solo Performance, and Best Pop Vocal Album. We Are by Jon Batiste won Album of the Year, and Leave the Door Open by Silk Sonic won both Song and Record of the Year. No pun intended, but it was a record-breaking night. Now it's time for Emma to update us on this week's science report.
Thanks, Madison. Hi, everyone. This is Emma Dennis back with your MCTV Science Report. First up, a large portion of Australia's Great Barrier Reef, 60% to be exact, has been hit by a 6th occurrence of coral bleaching. Coral bleaching takes place when the algae that live on coral disappears due to stress from warmer water temperatures. Since the algae give the coral both its color and main food source, coral reefs that lose a lot of algae turn white and gradually lose health. And this year is especially notable considering that 2022 is a La Niña year. This means that cooler weather is dominating the planet, but clearly climate change is still taking over. Now let's go from Australia to Antarctica, where satellite technology captured the first ice shelf to collapse in the eastern part of the continent. Typically, ice shelf loss leads to accelerated glacier movement and sea level rise. But luckily, the 450 square mile Conger ice shelf left only 2 small glaciers in its wake. Still, the ice shelf probably would not have collapsed were it not for the absence of protective sea ice, which melts when global warming takes its toll. And finally, the federal government's Securities and Exchange Commission recently gave the first green light in a majority vote to a new rule that would require public companies to publicize any impacts they have on the climate and the environment. If this rule does indeed take effect after a 60-day public comment period, companies would have to share how their work impacts the environment when registering for stock and releasing reports. And the largest companies would also need to supply information about their carbon footprint. While many environmental advocates and nonprofits have applauded the decision, there are some critics that do not believe the SEC's duties include accounting for environmental issues. And that's what's happening in the world of science. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Emma. 72 years ago, enumerators used to go door to door for the United States Census. Now, the data from the 1950 census is available online, which includes almost 7 million records. Free of charge, anyone can visit 1950census.archives.gov to look at population schedules, enumeration district maps, and enumeration district descriptions. The original paper documents were destroyed in the 1960s, but fortunately there were microfilms taken in 1952. With that, the National Archives has taken nearly a decade to prepare for the release of these documents. People can go in and search for names, locations, and districts. Optical character recognition was used to extract names from the handwritten text. Respondents over the age of 14 answered 20 questions for the 1950 census. Random people were selected to answer 6 additional questions. It will be another 10 years until the 1960 census is released to the public. On that note, here's Emily with her entertainment report.
Thanks, London. Hi, I'm Emily, back with your entertainment report. Kicking off this week was the 64th Annual Grammy Awards with stellar performances from BTS, Billie Eilish, and a rocking collaboration between her and Lenny Kravitz. Winning a clean sweep of awards is Silk Sonic, including Record of the Year and Best R&B Duo. Olivia Rodrigo walks away with a total of 3 Grammy Awards, Best New Artist, Best Pop Vocal Album, and Best Pop Solo Performance. Though us BTS fans are fuming about the lack of recognition for their global hit Butter and various other popular songs, the Grammys were overall better received by viewers, a big slap in the face to the previous week at the Oscars. This past weekend, the overhyped and overly budgeted Marvel film Morbius, starring everyone's favorite actor Jared Leto, was released in theaters, with an outstanding Rotten Tomatoes score of 16% and a Letterboxd score of 1.9 stars. Critics rage over the film's utter disappointment, calling it, quote, an incoherent, vampire-themed Marvel offcut, end quote. As Letterboxd user Spencer Nielsen best puts it, Morbius, more like Morbi-ass. The murderous Netflix drama Elite returns for a 5th season on April 8th. Not even a year after the release of Season 4, fans debate over what will happen following the cliffhanger of the last episode. Forewarning, if you're not caught up with the show, please be aware of spoilers. Picking up after Philippe's fateful New Year party and Guzman's running away, secrets circling Armando's death threaten to destroy the relationship between Samuel and Ari, as well as the innocence or guilt of other Las Encinas students. You know, just your typical high school drama. In music, Harry Styles released his new single, As It Was, on April 1st, with an accompanying music video. This track was the first preview of Harry's new album, Harry's House, set to debut on May 20th. So go home, get ahead, light-speed internet. I don't want to talk about the way that it was. Leave America, 2 kids follow her. I don't want to know about who's doing it first. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Emily. Recently, there has been talks in our legislature to permanently switch our clocks to daylight savings time. The Senate passed a bill to do so under the title the Sunshine Protection Act. The bill is currently waiting on a vote by the House of Representatives. Switching to daylight savings time year-round would cause places like New York City to see the sunrise around 8 a.m. during winter months and 5 a.m. during summer months, with a later sunset for winter and an earlier one for summer. Passing this legislation would improve overall sleep and health benefits for Americans. However, keeping the current time system approach would maintain a balance in sunsets, sunrises, and our lives in general.
Jersey Zoo recently tweeted about the birth of an endangered black lion tamarin. Grace was born on December 12th, but was too weak to be with her family and was cared for by the zookeepers. The species get their name because of their lion-like mane, even though they only will weigh 1 to 2 pounds in adulthood. Tamarins are native to a small portion of forests in southern Brazil, and most of the endangered population is in Sao Paulo. They were thought to be endangered for 50 years before they were rediscovered in 1972. The International Union for Conservation of Nature estimates that there are only roughly 1,600 black lion tamarins left in the world due to deforestation and logging. Jersey Zoo specializes in rare and endangered species. In 1990, they successfully bred a black lion tamarin and released others back into the Brazil wilderness. That's all for tonight's news report. I'm London Brazal.
And I'm Madison Lisowski. And this has been MCTV News. We'll see you guys again soon.